my name's Rachel, and today I'm here to review the absolute worst thing that I have ever read in my life. That would be A Gentle Tyranny by Jessie Manassian. I mean Jess Corban. So as many of you know, I did do a, I don't even know what to call that video. I did a video where I explained who this woman is. She wrote a book that is Christian fiction, but she wrote it under a pseudonym in order to hide the fact that she was trying to, well, do this in her own words.
And the reason I'm doing an Instagram live is because you'll see here at the bottom, it's, well, maybe you can read backwards. Jess Corban is the pen name that I've chosen for this particular project. Not because I'm ashamed of the books that I've already done that are nonfiction, but it's pretty customary for an author when jumping genres to pick a pen name just to help readers understand what they're going to get. But also specifically because for this fiction series, we wanted to make sure that it could reach a broader audience. This is a story not just for Christians, but for the culture at large. It deals with big questions like how men and women were designed to work together and to bring out the best in each other rather than ruling over each other. And I didn't want some of my nonfiction books that I've written to close doors needlessly before they'd given the story a chance. But also I think it's such a timely message when in our culture, men are being emasculated on one hand, and girls and women are being abused and trafficked on the other hand. How can we come together and find out what can we do? What can we do about it?
So what she did, as I explained in my video, is Christian subterfuge. It's evangelical Christian subterfuge, rather, because not all Christians do this. This is a very fundamentalist, I call them fundy, thing to do. If you need more context, maybe go watch that video before watching this one. Here I'm going to dissect her entire book. This book is, oh man, this book was bad. And not only was it xenophobic, racist, completely lacked understanding about what feminism is and what the goal of different sorts of sects of feminism is. It's anti-vaccination, it's anti-pornography, anti-sex work, anti-sex worker, it's anti-queer, it's homophobic, it's written by a homophobe. I don't even know where to end. Like, it just, the list, it just goes on and on and on. I'm going to, well, let me read you the synopsis, right? Okay. Let me pull it up on Goodreads, which, by the way, I did not tell y'all to go 1-star this on Goodreads, but you certainly did. And originally when I looked this up, it had like a 4 on Goodreads, and now it has like a, it's like a 2. Yikes, y'all. Yikes. You just, wow, a 2.45. Wow. Yikes. Okay, anyway, so here's the 2.45. Oh my god. Alright, so here is the description of the book. What if women unraveled the evils of patriarchy? With men safely gentled in a worldwide liberation, the matriarchy of Nide, oh man, the name of this, I forgot about that already. We'll get there. Has risen from the ashes. 17-year-old Raina Pierce has never given a thought to the brutes of old. Itching to escape her mother's finca, yeah, we have some Spanish words just sprinkly dinkled in here, and desperate to keep her training and forbidden friendship a secret. Her greatest worry is which destiny she'll choose at her next birthday. But when she's selected as a candidate for the succession instead, competing to become Nide's 9th matriarch, she discovers their Eden has come at a cost she's not sure she's willing to pay. Jess Corban's debut novel presents a new twist to the dystopian genre, delivering heart-pounding action, thought-provoking revelations, and a setting as lush as the jungles of Central America. And that's because you're a culture vulture. Of course, you literally went there and wrote down descriptions of another country and were like, yeah, I'll use that in my book. Like, what? So before I explain to you about the book, no, before I like dissect the book, right, let me explain to you, as she said, there is deep truths, core truths, deep truths about gender that she was trying to convey here. That was her message, and one was that men are being emasculated. So let me explain a little bit about how fundamentalists think, because right now they are really slamming home the idea, and I know this because I still have fundy family members and they very much believe this, that men are being emasculated and that women suffer because men are being emasculated. I don't know, it sounds so it's stupid as it sounds, right? They believe that this is a campaign, like a collective secular campaign that is originally coordinated by the devil. That's a thing they think. So the founder of Focus on the Family, who he's not affiliated with them anymore, but he is the original founder, James Dobson, who I have screamed about on this channel multiple times because he's a terrible person. Oh my god. Or devil. Oh my devil. What the fuck? James Dobson? James fucking Dobson dare to discipline? This is going in trash. James Dobson advocates for homophobia. James Dobson advocates for conversion therapy, spanking, and he makes this really fun allegory where he's like, you should beat your children because I beat my dog once. Yep, that's a thing James Dobson did. If there is a devil, it's James Dobson. He is an enormous homophobe and does not believe in any fluidity of gender, much like the people who colonized the United States, what is now the United States and Canada, and also Hawaii. There were indigenous cultures who had more fluidity in their gender, and then the Christian colonizers came in from over places into what is now the US and Canada, because this is stolen land, and also Hawaii, which is also stolen land. And they came in and they said, no fluidity of genders, that's not very Christian. Even though nobody wanted to be a Christian. Anyway, not in this video, Rachel, we don't have time. Instead of looking at historical context like that, Christians instead ignore that completely and are like, oh my gosh, there is this collected effort in secular culture to erase the binary of gender, which is the only thing that exists to them. And if you cut off the head of the family, you obliterate the Christian family, which the head of the family is the man, the father. And if you cut off the head of the family, then the rest of the family cannot be discipled, which means they cannot come to Jesus, because women, we can't do anything. So James Dobson, who founded Focus on the Family, he preaches this constantly. He recently said, there is nothing more foundational to who we are and how we relate to one another than the fact that God created us male and female. Humanity was created as two types, both are equally loved in God's eyes, and both will have equal status in heaven. However, their relation to one another on earth is defined through distinctive roles determined by God at the foundation of creation. He's talking about Adam and Eve, because they believe that that story is factual. The two genders, male and female, those are not genders, so that's sex, are together the earthly representation of who God is, which is interesting because God is only referred to as he, him. Neither, if you were to ever call God a she, they would immediately want to punch you in the face. Neither on its own is a full representation. This is one reason marriage between a man and a woman is so important and meaningful. The truest representation of God's nature is a healthy marriage between a fully masculine man and a fully feminine woman, each acting in submission to Christ and in submission to each other, which that's a whole joke. Satan has been attacking gender roles, and especially masculinity, with a vengeance over the last few years, and even Christians have been deceived. So basically society is failing because we are not adhering to the strict gender roles that God created. And without the funny version of masculinity, apparently everything just like falls apart, and sexual sin runs rampant, and women are treated poorly because of sexual sin. And if it sounds ridiculous, it's because it is. But that's the core truth about gender that she's trying to convey here, because that's what she believes. Marriage is the covenant. I would love to get into that and explain covenant marriage to you, but that's a rabbit hole. And basically, it's so hard. It's so hard to talk about funny stuff because I just want to like sit here and say this is ridiculous, this is crazy, but then I also have to sit here and define every weird word in their jargon that they use. God damn you. And it just takes a long time. Anyway, covenant marriage is basically what James Dobson described, is that it's only between a man and a woman, cisgender man and woman, who believe in God and who are adhering to these strict gender roles where the man is very masculine and the woman is very feminine, whatever that means to Christians in our culture at the time. Because they're defining it societal in like a societal way, which they don't see that, but whatever. Okay, so that's the truth that they're trying to convey here. Have we already been here several minutes? Yes. Sorry, I know this is a lot. I know it's a lot. Okay, so here we are talking about her book. Here we finally are. Okay, the beginning of the book opens up and it's like 2070, and this woman named Tristan Pierce is packing up her shit to go off to woman country. And she is the founder of Nide. And yes, this is full of spoilers. Do any of you care? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Who's going to read this at this point? Because it's beyond fundamentalist homophobes, because it's, oh my gosh, it's so bad. Okay, so she's taking down her living space, office, wherever she is, and she's taking down like all these headlines, and it says, the headlines still ignite as much fury as the first time she read them. 9 of 10 girls molested before age 15. Daughter sex most search internet term. Police find a dozen 4-year-old girls in brothel. Her gaze moves to a photo, ready for some xenophobia? A photo of 36 women in a heap of blood and black cloth beheaded for crimes against Allah. Guess which religion doesn't get demonized in this book? That's right, it's Christianity. Also said, she can't stand by while 2/3 of women are stripped of their dignity, abused in countless ways because of genetics, simply because they're female, born to be prey for men. So this is representing what she thinks that feminists think, right? And I don't think feminists think that. I don't think that we're thinking that men look at us and they're like, you were born to be prey. Like, not, ew, am I about to say not all men? Feminists know that not all men are bad, but we do say enough men that it is bad and we need to do something about it. What do we want to do about it? Policy change. Not what she did in this book. Big X. Which we'll get to what she decided to have the feminists do. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then it explains tonight Tristan, along with other coalition, the Safety Coalition, is this band of women that got together to create this place away from men. The Safety Coalition members from, so Tristan is from the United States, so she and the other members from the United States are sailing aboard. There are other countries involved in this, but she is just one of the ones from the United States. I just want to make that clear that other countries are involved because of diversity, but it's not diversity. We'll get there. Blah, blah, blah. 54 international members will make their own journeys to the site, embarking from 25 countries around the world, from Australia to China, India to Haiti. They will transport their daughters, as well as any infant sons they gentled. Gentled is the term for how they got rid of their masculinity. We'll get there. The infant sons they gentled during the liberation, to begin again at a safe haven disguised as a top secret military base. And again, they're going to a place in Central America, which assumedly is Belize, because that's what she modeled this after, right? And Belize is colonized by England or Great Britain or whatever you call it. So I guess it's a British military base. That's great. More white people, more imperialism. Why not, Jess? Why not? Thanks to efforts of the Safety Coalition, no remaining male will be able to reproduce, and hundreds of coalition leaders representing millions of members will stay behind to handle media manipulation. So my thing is that what she just said is that the feminists, who typically are very staunch reproductive rights activists, in fact, to a fault sometimes, because a lot of like second wave feminists and rad femmes will care more about that than they will care about, I mean, when do they ever care about being intersectional? So they don't really care about reproductive rights for all, right? They focus on reproductive rights for white women. And the thing about that is that women of color bear the brunt of being treated like crap reproductive rights. People who tried to be intersectional in their feminism know that. I don't think that rad femmes know that. So rad femmes, nobody in feminism would ever do this. Like, rad femmes would be like, no, we don't want to do that to white women. And people who are more intersectional in their feminism would be like, hey, no, We're not going to experiment on anybody, man or woman, man, woman, or any other gender, because that's not cool. That's not feminism. Especially because people of color got experimented on in the name of learning more about reproduction, right? So specifically women of color. I mean, the reason that we know anything about gynecology today is because black women were tested on without anesthetics. So there's no future, there's no dystopian future in which any feminist would be okay with manipulating other people's reproductive rights. I mean, the rad femmes would at least come for the white women, and the people who are more intersectional in their feminism would be like, hey, fuck off, no way, you're not touching anybody's reproductive rights, no matter how bad men have gotten. Jessie Manassian doesn't believe that. She believes that we want to emasculate men by any means necessary, and that's just not true. It says they had a council meeting in Rio de Janeiro. I'm like, you had a council meeting in Rio de Janeiro, but most of your members are white people, and oh my gosh, you just threw in Rio de Janeiro for, what did she call it in her review of Woman in Moonlight? Latin flair. She just threw in the name Rio for Latin flair, so that's fun. And then Tristan, the creator of this place, the white woman, gets to name it. Apparently they had all these safety coalition meetings and they still had not decided on a name, and the day that she's, leaving to go to this place, she decides on the name, saying, according to the religion she once believed in, it was an ancient garden, the Garden of Eden, that men first poisoned the world with patriarchy. Which I think is how Christians view what feminists think of as the Garden of Eden, which, I mean, kind of, but I think patriarchy stems from much later things than the Garden of Eden, because I think the Garden of Eden was a myth. So this just again shows that she has no idea what feminists actually think about patriarchy. According to the religion she once believed in, it was an ancient garden, the Garden of Eden, that men first poisoned the world with patriarchy. They've tried to rule over us ever since, she thinks, grimacing. But we'll reverse all that. We'll do it differently. Create a system opposite of everything that screwed up this backwards world. We'll even reverse the name of its origin. Eden stood for repression, but Naday, she whispers, her decision made. Naday will stand for women! Yay! And all the feminists cheered! What? And then this is just hilarious. So the white woman decides to name she named it Naday. This is just the stupidest thing that I have ever read. Oh my gosh, I thought Caraval was bad. This is the worst thing I've ever read. Note to writers, authors, don't take things and spell them backwards. We will make fun of you. We will make fun of you. Then she goes on to make an entire constitution of Naday, which is full of nonsense. I kind of hope Lo from Lo Reading Things will read this just to pick apart the constitutional part, because Lo is an actual lawyer, and I sent her some screenshots and she's like, that shit doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So first of all, it says that, Naday is being made to rid the world of the brutes, which is what they now call men, who have harmed women for millennia due to their biologically driven lust for pleasure and power. And then it again just goes to show that she has no concept of how feminists think about patriarchy and men, because I don't think that men's lust for power comes from a biological place. I am not trying to change cisgender men's biology. What I am trying to change are the systems that have told them that they are special. Read Mediocre. Read Mediocre. Like, it's very simple. Read Mediocre by Ijeoma Oluo. She explains all of this. It's very helpful. This author would never, ever. Jessie Manassian will never pick up a book on critical race theory. Never! She'd never do it. You couldn't pay her to do it. What's the next thing? Okay, the next thing in their constitution that pissed me off was, between the ages of 3 months and 1 year, gentles will be relinquished by their birth mothers to a materno finca, which again with the sprinkling of the Spanish words in there, where they will live until the age of 7. Between the ages of 7 and 14, gentles will reside in special facilities called hives, where they will be educated and trained to serve Naday. Okay, so I have to explain real quick that there is no Christianity like outright in this book, but there is one Christian woman character, and it is our main character. What's her name? Raina. Her mother is a Christian, and at first Raina's like so annoyed with her mom. She's like, oh, so goody two shoes, but she's like also breaking the rules. Mom, why would you do that? And it comes to light that Raina's mom is a Christian, without saying the word Christian, but they use God and they capitalize it with a G, which it's a Christian God. So anyway, Raina's mom is a Christian, and she is the only one, seemingly, you find out throughout the book, that cares about the gentles, the guys, because they're not referred to as men or boys. They're referred to as either brutes, which is men, or gentles, so ones that have been biologically tampered with, which I'm just going to tell you what they did was they took their testosterone away, which we'll get there. We will get there. But what happens here is all the women in this Nide are seen as like, it's normal to just give up your boy children. But the only one saving them is Raina's mom, the Christian. That's so pointed. Like, that's so like so blatantly obvious. Like, see, the only one that cares about men and boys, the only one who cares about the children. Won't somebody think of the children?
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Is the Christian. I hate it. It's like, that's not true. Women would not give up their kids just because they were born with a penis. That would not happen. I am a full-fledged motherfucking feminist, and I would never let anybody tamper with my kids. I would never let anybody fuck with their testosterone without their consent. I would never let anybody take them away from me. Nonsense. Nonsense. I hate it. But that's what she sees feminist as, is cold to men who have masculinity, because feminism? What? Next thing is, any woman who births 10 or more children shall receive a pension for the remainder of her years. So they want to repopulate this very small place that they live in, and you get a stipend if you are birthing a bunch of children? I don't know what to say to that, but it's clear that she didn't suffer any long-term consequences from having kids, because there was no conversation about that, how hard pregnancy is on people. There was no conversation on that throughout any part of this book. And there were plenty of pregnant people where we could have had that conversation. So it just goes to show that she doesn't care about women at all. She just wrote this to make a point. The people who care about women are, I would say, intersectional feminists who are working towards equality in medicine, especially equality in medicine for women of color who are treated much more poorly than their white peers, according to statistics. Statistics who? We don't listen to facts, right? This lady put word experts in quotes in her book when she was talking about mental illness, so yikes. Okay, all Nideans led by the matriarchy shall endeavor to embody the core values, core virtues of diversity, harmony, ingenuity, simplicity, and self-restraint. So we're going to talk about diversity, simplicity, and self-restraint. So diversity, because Nide combines the cultures and languages of dozens of countries of origin to create a new diverse yet unified society, we shall establish English as our common tongue. You wanted to make... You took what, 20 countries, and you put them together at Rio, and you said, we should all speak English. Ma'am? Which makes sense, because again, this is what she said about diversity.
Yes, and this was something that happened really organically as I was writing the Nide Rising series. Not to give away any spoilers, but the way that Nide was founded made it possible to bring together cultures and races from around the world and create this really diverse sisterhood. And I'm a firm believer in the real world that it's important to have cultural distinction as well, but through fiction, it was fun to imagine and explore what could happen if some of those physical and cultural delineations that have caused a lot of strife in today's day and age were taken away, to see how women could come together and create a lot of diversity. It was a lot of fun.
So this is so typical of white people, because just having having BIPOC people in the room is not enough. You are re-traumatizing BIPOC people by bringing them into your space and saying, hi, you're gonna do all the white people things now. You're gonna do all the colonizers things now. What? Oh my god. You don't get diversity points just for asking them to be on the team. Not to mention, she didn't even like try to find different ways in which different countries, different women from different countries could work together, or different people of different origins. Like, there's a lot of literature out there that proves that land thrives when Indigenous people are in charge of it. I will leave a link down below. And I think that this could have been a really good place to like put them in charge of that, but I don't even think that in her list of countries she probably included any Indigenous people. So that's great. It also says that they are going to rely heavily on ancient roots from which many of our cultures of origins arose, i.e. the Greeks and Romans, with special attention given to Latin, mathematics, and music, while not ignoring the contribution and influence of ancient Eastern cultures. Okay, let's move on to self-restraint, because we have more racism to get to in a minute, and I don't know. Ugh. Another one of the core virtues is self-restraint, aka no sex, which is how she got around both being homophobic in the book and not explicitly saying that she's homophobic. So like, basically the only queer person in this book is the villain. Yeah, we'll get there. Self-restraint, recognizing the dangers and evil of primal lusts in every form, and to demonstrate our superiority over the brutes who abused, suppressed, and mistreated us, the women of Nide will adhere to the highest standard of self-restraint by denying any and all base urges, instead redirecting our passions into productive contributions for the good of Nide. Unlike our brutish predecessors, women are capable of enjoying all the merits of platonic friendship and sisterly affection without digressing into crude gratifications. Those not exercising self-control will be punished as deemed appropriate. So basically, women, no fucking each other. Again, as I said in the other video, women are hot, so fuck off. Queer people exist, women like sex. This is ridiculous. I hate it. I hate it here. Okay, so let's move back into the racism real quick. This book has a blatant use of the mammy stereotype. And literally every time that this character got brought back in, it just got worse. I cannot believe she did that. So the mammy stereotype is one of 3 stereotypes used against black women. There is the mammy, the sapphire, and oh no, what is the other one? Jezebel. It's the mammy, the sapphire, and the Jezebel. So the mammy is very common. You've seen it in The Help and Gone with the Wind. It's normally a fat black woman who takes care of a white family. She does not have any life outside of taking care of this family. She is just a caretaker. That's it. There's nothing else to her. And that's really what the problem is with stereotypes, is they boil somebody down to just one thing and then you don't see them as a whole person anymore. I'm gonna leave a link down below to a video about those stereotypes in media, and I really recommend you go watch it because it's really helpful to break it down and explain why that's so harmful. So one of the first, I think it might be the first black woman that's introduced, is Marsa, and she is the cook, the chef for Raina's family. And I'll just read you to you. It's so bad. Okay, it says, usually only wealthier women can afford chefs, and never maternos, which is the women who give birth a bunch of times, like Raina's mother. But some perks still reside with the matriarch's daughter. Oh yeah, Raina's mom is the matriarch's daughter, which makes Raina the granddaughter. We'll get there. Mother convinced Marsa to take the position at our house before I was born. Over the years, her role has expanded from preparing enticing meals to second mother. She doesn't let us girls call her Dame Musso. Dame is like Mrs. or Miss. It's like a term of respect. Dame Musso, only Marsa. And since she and mother have known each other since childhood, Marsa's own mother was a chef at their house. She's basically family. This is Oh my gosh. Okay, so here it's going to describe her multiple times, and I want you to pay attention to the words it uses to describe her. Her full, colorful voice, matching her thick body, wrapped in a multicolored apron, rises above the sizzle of the food. Marcia has little patience for our family squabbles, and her large, quasi-stern presence has squelched countless quarrels over the years. And then she talks about, if I do anything bad, I'd get a thick finger wagged at me for good measure. Then at another part it said, Marcia occupies the kitchen table, husking roasted cacao beans by lamplight. The rich smell sparks an instant craving for a hot cup of creamy chocola. Despite the warm season heat, this book goes on and on about food that the author ate and believes. Oh, kill me. The broad woman hums a tune like a Trinidadian, her melody trailing away when she sees me. Merci, Seigneur, she murmurs. Wow, my French is so good. Gathering herself up and charging across the kitchen. Where have you been, petite? Oh yeah, she has a Creole accent. Okay. Well, she prods, pressing her hands into her wide hips. She explains where she's been, and then Marcia says she wants to attend to her second highest priority. You need to eat something. And then Marcia makes her a whole plate of food, which again, it's just describing the food that the author loved to eat in Belize, which cool. When I lived in Japan, I ate sushi, but why are you writing a whole book on it? You're a culture vulture. But anybody in this book who's just skinny is not described this way. So she was described as, if you picked up on it, thick, large, full, wide, and broad. No one else in the book is described this way. It's so gross. That's a blatant use of the mammy stereotype, and it's so racist. It's so uncomfortable.
Do you have any black friends at home, Mari?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I have Flora. Flora is my friend, my best friend.
Flora is your maid. If you stop paying her, do you think she'd stick around?
And then she tries to make it sound like, oh, we're all of one color now, because diversity and blah blah. The assortment of colors pop against the women's rich skin tones, some lighter like weathered thatch, others deep as oiled mahogany, all collectively known as Nidean brown. Not all browns are the same, and you are ignoring the whole concept of lighter skin privilege, which as a white woman you don't need to comment on, but you should be listening to other people have conversations about and learning from them. But I guess you can't because you're too busy trying to convey deep truths about gender. In the day, we're free to enjoy the best of everything that foremothers brought us, from our clothing to our food, from the religions we practice or don't. Nice try. To the dialects still passed down throughout the provinces, like Marcia's patchy Creole. As far as the religions we either practice or don't, her mom, again, is a blatant Christian, which, fine, that's fine, but portraying her as like the, shining beacon of hope, whereas everybody's like, yeah, kill our sons, is gross. Here it says, remember who you are, Reina. Please remember, this is her mom speaking, and may God, capital G, go with you. With that, she kisses my head again and leaves the room. I think about her last hope, that God go with me. I've never given much thought to Mother's religion, to her mealtime prayers, or to the crusty book of scriptures. Crusty. The crusty book of scriptures she keeps on her nightstand, a relic from the old world. Not many Nideans believe in God. Most of the foremothers, I understand, thought that if he existed, he wouldn't have let the brutes of old wreak havoc on the world. Safer to trust in themselves. So we trust in ourselves. But I've seen how Mother believes in something bigger than us. And now, in the face of an unknown future, I figure it can't hurt to try. I bow my head and mumble a silent plea for help. It's just Christianity just weaseling its way in and trying to, it's just the subterfuge. It's so cringy. Oh my god, just say you're Christian fiction. I would have not read it if it was just labeled Christian fiction. Why did you have to lie? The lies! The other virtue that I wanted to talk about is simplicity. So she talks very much about how her grandmother, the matriarch, who is the villain, is not like living in simplicity, is also the only queer person. She talks about how her grandmother wants her done up with makeup and dresses, and she has her dress in a romper, and she says it's so uncomfortable and I want out of this prissy romper. And it's like, we get it. You love simplicity. You don't like opulence. Like, okay, chill on the evangelizing. Just chill out. Okay, so let me talk about the plot for just a second so I can move on to the next part. So basically what happens is there's a bunch of different jobs that you can go into in Nide, and Reina isn't sure which job she wants to do. She's thinking about becoming Alexia. It was basically their military. They ride horses and shoot bow and arrows, and she likes horses, so she's thinking about joining, but she finds them intimidating. And then her grandmother, the matriarch, who is the villain, by the way, if I haven't mentioned that already, and is also the only queer person, I'm still fuming. She calls her to the capital, which is called Phoenix City, calls her to the capital and has let her know that, oh, I want you to be my successor, so I'm going to put you in the running for the succession. So she has to kind of compete against a few other young women for the matriarch position, and all of that was really boring. And I just didn't really care at any point. So they're living at, you know, in the capital, and they're doing all this succession bullshit. And at one point they're all together, and it says inside the mansion cooks. I'm going to talk about all the things in this book that don't make any sense. It says at one point they're all together, and it says inside the mansion cooks labor over exotic dishes. How is it exotic if you're from there? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Exotic dishes? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. That's like me going to my mother's kitchen being like, wow, your pierogies, so exotic. What? Then she meets some of the Alexi, the military, and another one of the only dark-skinned black girls appears and becomes her friend, and this girl's name is, and I shit you not, Trinidad. You named one of the only black girls Trinidad. Okay. Another thing that just does not make any sense is they don't know what the men, the brutes, did in order for them to change the world and like live in a day and stuff. They don't know specifically what happened, and without that context, like, why would they care to live in a day? You know what I'm saying? So like, it doesn't really make sense to me. Anyway, okay, moving on. Other things that don't make sense are, just random parts of this that she would say beyond the whole exotic dishes. Like this paragraph, her final words sound paradoxically soft for one so hard. She's talking about one of the Alexi, one of the military people. Then again, the dichotomy of the Alexia is precisely what has drawn me to them since I was a girl. They've mastered the fusion of strength and beauty, fierceness and equity. Why are those a dichotomy? What? Why are those paradoxical? Why is there a paradox between strength and beauty? Why is there a paradox between fierceness and equity? What? That doesn't make any sense. Do you know what words mean? At one point during all of these like succession trials she's going through, she ends up going out of Nade and finding out that there are men, which you knew the whole time, because at the very beginning of the book she falls and hits her head, and a dude, and obviously a dude, which she doesn't know it's a dude because she's never seen a dude before, carries her to safety, immediately establishing that not all men are bad. Immediately a man saves her. It's just... So eventually she gets caught in the forest and she's around some dudes, and one of them tries to assault her. So then she like kind of makes friends with a couple of them. One is named Rohan, which, okay, I guess Tolkien. She asks Rohan, why do some of you seem good when others, like Dayan, the guy who assaulted her, hurt people? Rohan says, we're men, that's why. The matched intensity of his words and gaze startle me. The return of electricity when he steps closer more so. Oh yeah, there's a very clean romance in here. We can't be forced to be any certain way. We are what we are. We can be violent or we can be gentle, but the choice is ours. No one has taken it from us. Aw, Rhysand, is that you? And then he asks her, between us and the gentles, the guy who's the people who've had their testosterone taken away, between us and the gentles, which is better? The weight of his question defies gravity, hanging in the air like a swirl of smoke or a flash of light. Her descriptions are ridiculous. I consider the only brute I have for reference, Jace, with his affable, endearing smile, blah blah blah. describes all of the brutes she's met so far. But then I remember the helpless panic produced by Dan's body, pinning me down, his hand around my throat, and the fear, even the memory of that fear, could make me want to wish away every brute in existence. Their danger, their possibility of evil, overshadows all else. That's not how women think of men. Oh, this is so ridiculous. She's trying to, like, make it seem like Raina could possibly understand why women would do away with all men. But women would never do away with all men. Like, in reality, we would never do that. So, no. Jace looks exactly like her mom. This is another thing that doesn't make any sense. Jace looks exactly like her mom, and she realizes this, and then she goes home, and her sister's like, hey, I think Mother is somehow involved in the brutes that we've started to realize are alive outside of today. And she's like, what? Mother involved with the brutes? This is news to me. How can it be news to you when you literally just figured out that that dude is your brother? Ma'am, are you okay? It's like 4 pages later and like you just forgot that you have a brother. Like, are you stupid? Are you actually stupid? Ma'am? Then she goes back to the capital and she ends up being really suspicious of her grandma, obviously. And she goes and finds Tristan Pierce's journals, and Tristan Pierce, remember the white woman who created Nide in Rio? What? And she sees a whole bunch of stuff that this is the worst. This is the worst. It's so, I want to set it on fire and watch everything burn with it. I hate it. It makes me want to die. This is where it gets anti-vax and anti-porn and anti-feminist in like a really sneaky way, and this is just gross. So it says, those slimy narcissists on Capitol Hill actually passed it. This is Tristan's diary, by the way. Of course they're spinning it like this law is liberating women's choice, but all the Sexual Liberation Act does is legalize their sick lusts. Now men can pimp girls no matter what the age, film it, make VR of them, whatever they want, and we're powerless to stop it. They're not men, they're brutes. I'm afraid this is the beginning of the end for women, but what can we do? Nobody would ever legalize an act that would allow men to, women would never allow that. Like, we would absolutely rise up and we would not take away men's testosterone, but we would dip, like we would be gone. Oh my God, wow. Who knows, maybe I am capable of violence. But apparently, you know, what she's trying to say is that society gets so sick that we legalize something called the Sexual Liberation Act, right? So this is what James Dobson was referring to, is that the devil is going to make society so sick that we just legalize whatever we want sexually, which just shows a complete misunderstanding of radfems, because radfems alone, radfems alone would never allow that, right? Radfems are all about the Me Too movement, and of course they leave out, you know, the fact that sex work is a job, and if women want to choose it, they should be allowed to. If anybody wants to choose it, they should be allowed to. They should be supported. They should be protected. But again, radfems don't support sex work. They don't support pornography. So why would this just shows like a complete misunderstanding of all the different sects of feminism, because there's not a single sect of feminism that would ever allow a Sexual Liberation Act that allowed men to to take advantage of non-consenting women and girls. That would never happen. That's not what feminism wants. But that's what she thinks that the culture at large is doing, right? She thinks that Satan is emasculating men, and then we're going to end up legalizing child pornography, and that's what she thinks. That's what the feminists want. That's what the liberals really want. Then she says, I've been thinking women do control the birthing process, except for doctors. I've never heard of a man who wasn't squeamish about a baby coming out of his playground. What if we could use that to our advantage? And then another entry says, oh, this is where it gets real fun. This is where it gets real fun, right? Mel, her friend, thinks I'm crazy, but she says it's possible, at least theoretically, to create a vaccine that would block testosterone in infant boys. What? Apparently, other applications of testosterone blocking injections already exist in cancer treatment and gender therapy. There's her dig at gender therapy. She agreed to do some research and run the theory past a few other female lab technicians-ish. A year and a couple months goes by. A year and a couple months from idea to saying that it works. A year and a half She figured it out, a vaccine for infants that prevents testosterone from reaching viable levels. In a year and a half, you figured out for sure that giving a certain vaccine to infants will keep their testosterone from raising throughout their entire life. In a year and a half? Ma'am, that doesn't add up. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And another vaccine in quotes because it's a fake vaccine, for existing testosterone carrying men that obliterates their sperm. I have a meeting today with my contact at Xavier Pharmaceuticals to see what it would take to mass produce, and my media maven assures me that with the right positioning, fake reports of the scrotia virus, more contagious than coronaviruses and AIDS combined, will easily go viral. More contagious than coronaviruses and AIDS combined. She's talking about using the media to make corona seem like a thing. Oh my gosh. And then here's the real dig. Here's the real part where she gets all anti-vax in your face. Side note, it's a little disconcerting how easily our vaccine additives, in quotes, and preservatives, in quotes, have passed through federal testing. Either Mel is really good at what she does, or there are more holes in these regulations than Swiss cheese. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Ma'am. And then here's where she goes and to be blatantly anti-pornography. She talks about going to a council meeting. The response to the vaccine, like them being for it, was overwhelmingly positive. Some have reservations, but after meeting with each leader individually the past few weeks, they have accepted the truth. For the safety and survival of women, we must do something. Hey, when you were meeting with all those leaders, did you make them speak English? I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering. Or did they magically all speak English? Just wondering. Just thoughts. Just thoughts I have. Just thoughts. They've accepted the truth. For the safety and survival of women, we must do something. Men are broken. Maybe they weren't 100 years ago. I don't know. But something has changed in the 21st century. Maybe they've corrupted their own DNA with their unchecked addiction to the new drug. As a movement from my mother's era put it. She's talking about porn. They call it the new drug. Sometimes I wonder how the world would be different if they'd stopped the flood before it started. Maybe put an end to online pornography before it warped into an addiction of pandemic proportions. Okay. So then she talks about how they, boys who have been gentled, which given the vaccine to not produce viable amounts of testosterone anymore, have a bunch of issues with their health, so like long-term issues with like heart disease and muscle mass and all kinds of other stuff. It's blatantly clear that she doesn't understand. Our issue with men is not biological, it's not their testosterone. Our issue with men is structural. It has literally nothing to do with biology. I don't give a fuck about your testosterone. I have testosterone. I don't hate myself for it. I have testosterone. If you have ovaries, you have testosterone. Your ovaries produce it. Literally everybody has testosterone. Everybody has it. Everybody has it. I don't think this woman knows that. I really don't. She also refers to the gentles as being passive people, and says that she's surprised they have enough shrewdness to listen and gossip among themselves. And I'm like, is that like do you think that that's what testosterone does? Like, I'm so confused. And then at the end, Raina is like very jaded by this whole society because she realized, she doesn't know what testosterone means, but she's like, oh, we've messed with men's biology and that's bad, and all the brutes aren't bad because I met some in the jungle and some of them were nice to me. And it's like, this whole thing is ridiculous, and so and the book is poorly written, so it's just, this is ridiculous. And her grandma ends up obviously being the villain, right? Because she's been living in opulence, which is against the tenet, the like core virtues of this place. She's also having a relationship in secret with one of her advisors, of course, which is a woman. Of course she is. Of course the only person on page who's having a queer relationship is the villain. Of course it is. Of course. Of course homophobia. Of course. And then in the end, because her grandma finds out that she read Tristan Pierce's journals, she's like, oh, I can't trust you. And she picks the mean girl to be her successor. And then Jesse's like, and then Raina's like, all right, I'll just join Alexia. And it's so anticlimactic because you knew the whole time what was going to happen. It was just the whole thing. A lot of it made no sense, but the whole plot was just very guessable because as soon as you find out that a fundamentalist wrote this and that she outwardly said that she wrote this to convey gender truths, you could guess from point A to point B what would happen. And it did. I just didn't expect it to be so racist and xenophobic and bad throughout. But it was. It really was. It was terrible. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I feel like I've been talking for forever. This book was terrible. I want to send her receipts of my therapy that I have to go through in order to get past my feelings about this book because I feel like I need to be reimbursed. Oh yeah, thanks to the publisher and to NetGalley for giving me an arc of this book. Also, thank you. No, wait, what I meant was fuck you to the publisher for being terrible and evangelizing through books and not labeling things as Christian fiction. And yeah, I really hope that the next time this woman wants to evangelize through fiction that she labels it Christian and doesn't try to use subterfuge. Okay? Okay. Thanks for watching. If you want to support my channel, you can subscribe and like and leave comments. All of the proceeds in this video, just like in my last video, will go to the Trevor Project and Breakout. More about those down below. I actually got a fair amount of views on the last video, which is awesome because the more like ad revenue I get, the more I'll be able to donate to the Trevor Project and to Breakout. Good God, this fly is pissing me off, man. So yeah, share the shit out of these videos. Hopefully they are enjoyable, even though this book was not. I feel like I need to be reimbursed by Jessie for the time that I spent with her thoughts. Anyway, okay, thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Make sure you tell your queer friends not to read this book. Warn everybody that you know away from it because it is written by somebody who is obviously just dangerous. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.